We have defined faith as the act of believing and behaving based on knowledge that is uncertain yet reasonable. Now, how much of our knowledge is certain? To be very strict about its definition, only two sciences attain certainty: logic and mathematics. The reason is that all other sciences have some parts that are contingent, that is to say, non-necessary. This would make a large portion of our knowledge to be uncertain. But for practical purposes, we can loosen the definition a bit and include the following cases that reach near certainty. Scientific proofs for the empirical sciences. While these sciences sometimes reinvent themselves based on new discoveries, this is rare, and scientific proofs are close enough to certainty to be called proofs. Direct experience from multiple senses. While there is in theory the possibility of dreams and hallucinations, in practice, if we can see it, hear it, and touch it at the same time, we can be neither certain that the experience is true. With that, the set of beliefs driven by faith slightly decreases, but there still remains a large portion of our knowledge that is merely reasonable, and for which we must rely on faith. We will give examples in a moment. Before that, let's assess the relation between a claim and its truth. A claim is either a truth or not a truth. As per the laws of logic, there are no other possibilities. And if not a truth, it is either because the claimer is honest or not honest. This makes the claim an honest mistake or a lie. Again, no other possibilities. Thus, a claim about truth fits in one of three possibilities: a lie, an honest mistake, or a truth. Now, on to our first example. Your friend is late to meet up and claims this was because of unusually bad traffic. You assess the truth of the claim by checking the three possibilities. When it comes to a lie, the presumption of innocence principle, which states that everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty, makes this choice unreasonable. When it comes to an honest mistake, as your friend has taken this route countless times, they are unlikely to be mistaken about the expected traffic. By elimination, truth is the most reasonable possibility. You believe your friend and behave accordingly out of faith. But now, say that the friend repeatedly makes the claim over and over and over again. This unusually bad traffic no longer seems unusual. At this point, continuing to trust in the friend's claim would be an act of irrational faith. The most reasonable explanation is now that the friend is mistaken in their judgment of traffic. If after that they continue to show up late, there may be sufficient evidence to suspect that they are lying about leaving on time. The whole time, the response follows from what is the most reasonable explanation as the events unfold, and is always done in accordance to faith. Why do most of us agree that the Earth is the shape that it is? Because there is an expert consensus. Sure, there may also be simple tests that we could do on our own, but let's face it, most of us haven't done them. Let's loosely define an expert as a person that has experience in the field of expertise, is in the profession if applicable, and when dealing with the empirical sciences, has performed the scientific tests. Let's assess claims about a topic of expertise by checking the three possibilities. We will first compare the reliability of experts versus non-experts. When it comes to a lie, without any further information, experts are no more likely to lie than non-experts, and the presumption of innocence prevents us from making that claim without any evidence. An example of sufficient evidence would be if the claimer is in a conflict of interest, and so it is their duty to avoid this. When it comes to an honest mistake, while nobody is infallible, experts are less likely to be mistaken than non-experts by definition. We just have to make sure they're experts in the right field so as to avoid committing the fallacy called appeal to false authority. Thus, by elimination, it is more reasonable to rely on experts over non-experts about claims of expertise. For example, let's say you are diagnosed with cancer by a cancer doctor, and although it is treatable, the treatment is quite harmful. You, of course, wish the claim were not true, but you are not a doctor. Shouldn't you go for the treatment? Now, what happens if the opponent is also an expert? In that case, everything is equal on both sides and it is a draw. If we really had to pick a side, we would need to rely on other principles such as the precautionary principle, err on the side of caution. Or if not applicable, then the principle of sufficient reason. Unless there is sufficient ground to change, then maintain the status quo. Continuing our example on cancer. You decide to get a second expert opinion, and the second doctor claims you don't have cancer. With no third expert to break the tie, you have to make a decision. Erring on the side of caution, it would be more reasonable to go for the treatment as it is less harmful than the cancer. Fortunately, an even split among experts is expected to be rare. More often than not, there will be a majority, and indeed a large majority, on one side. Let's check the three possibilities again. When it comes to a lie, our previous assessment still stands. When it comes to an honest mistake, while no one is infallible, the probability for the average expert to be mistaken is low. Therefore, for a large group of experts, by laws of statistics, a small portion is expected to be mistaken while the remaining larger portion is not. Thus, by elimination, it is more reasonable to side with the expert consensus. On the cancer example, let's say you can afford to get 10 expert opinions. 9 doctors claim you don't have cancer, 1 claims that you do. It is now reasonable to hold off on the treatment because even though it is not a universal agreement, there is nevertheless a clear consensus. Thus, even though we have labeled a scientific proof as a certainty, this certainty is really only attained by the experts in that field. For everyone else, relying on experts to inform our beliefs and behavior is a type of faith. This goes to show that living in accordance to faith applies to life in general, not just to religion. But of course, religion is the primary object of faith. The reason is that religion, being the application of theology, pertains to our behavior, and most arguments in favor of divine truths lead to knowledge that is not certain but reasonable. Here is an argument for why it is reasonable to believe that Jesus has resurrected. While it is of course disputed that Jesus is God, it is usually not disputed as a matter of history that Jesus the man existed and that he had disciples. Here are 3 premises from history. Jesus died on the cross. The disciples claimed that Jesus resurrected after his death on the cross. And the same disciples were persecuted, and some died for that claim. Let's assess the claim that Jesus resurrected by again checking the 3 possibilities. When it comes to a lie, the presumption of innocence demands a motive, and this is challenging when people are willing to be persecuted or even die for their claim. While lying is not impossible, the position demands a heavy burden of proof and is unreasonable until then. When it comes to an honest mistake, we have said that a direct experience from multiple senses gives a near certainty. The disciples claimed to not only have seen Jesus, they also talked with him, ate with him, and a disciple who was skeptical at first even touched him. And this near certainty is even more certain when the event was experienced by many at the same time. So this makes the possibility of an honest mistake highly unreasonable. By elimination, this makes truth the most reasonable explanation. Now, we might object to the argument by disputing one of the premises. But these premises are a matter of expertise in history. We should leave these disputes to experts, and the rest of us should rely on their consensus. If the argument stands, it is not much of a leap to conclude that Jesus is God, and that we should consequently conform our beliefs and behavior to his teachings. And to live a life based on this knowledge that is uncertain yet reasonable is a clear example of living by faith. This ends Season 1 of A Christian Philosophy. See you in the next season. Thanks for watching.